Welcome to my evaluation for my AS Media portfolio. For my coursework, I have chosen to produce an indie music magazine, contents page, double page spread and cover page. I chose indie as a genre because doing my primary research through an online site called SurveyMonkey, I discovered that this genre was in popular demand. Over the last 10 years, media technologies have advanced so much that anybody can produce a media product and share it across the world. Because of social media websites such as Facebook, Twitter, DeviantArt or Blogger becoming such a large part of people's lives, it is easy for anyone to share their media work online to a mass audience. Before starting my AS portfolio, I did a GCSE media course, therefore I am already familiar with some media technologies. And now I have produced my AS portfolio, my knowledge has improved a lot. One of the most important tools I used when doing my AS coursework was the internet. I used many different sites online in order to both share my work and research information for it. One of my main sites that I used online was Blogger. This was where I created all of my planning posts for my work. Each stage I took to prepare for the creative process was recorded on Blogger. Therefore, it was an important tool to record my progress. Due to Blogger being an online tool, it is accessible to anyone that I wish to see it. Therefore, it will be a good tool for when I apply to university in the future. Blogger does have its downsides. For example, it was very difficult to save posts if you've been typing directly onto them. This was an issue when typing large amounts. However, useful sites that I used was Prezi. This allowed me to produce online presentations that could be embedded into Blogger. This allowed my work to be more creative and interesting. The internet was also a most useful tool when doing my research and my practical work. For example, I needed to look for style models from other magazines. Even though I used print versions, it was helpful to get images from online. Another useful tool that I used for a lot of my research was SurveyMonkey. This site allowed me to make surveys online that I can share on Facebook or Twitter. By doing this, I'm able to ask a large amount of people what they wish to see on my final product, allowing me to relate it to my target audience a lot better. When it came to making my practical work, I used a program called Photoshop. Not only did I use this for my prelim task, but in my GCSE course, I had to produce a magazine cover within Photoshop. Therefore, I'm already quite familiar with how the program works. For my AS work, I needed to make sure that my Photoshop skills were much more advanced in order to create a product that looked professional. By watching tutorials online, I learned how to use brushes within my work in order to make it look more interesting to the reader. I used that overall in my main task. My main task on Photoshop looked a lot more advanced, and I have successfully created products that look more professional. A program that I did not use, however, was Illustrator. I think that in A2, I would like to use this program to advance my skills even more and allow me to create more interesting practical work. Lastly, in order to edit my evaluation, I used a program called iMovie. This allowed me to cut out aspects that I didn't need and embed images on blue screen. I think that in my later studies, I would like to use iMovie to edit moving images in a more interesting way, using a lot more tools that it provides. My knowledge of magazines and editing at the beginning of my AS work was fairly high, as I had done both magazines for GCSE media and for a shine competition that I have entered. Therefore, I am very familiar with using Photoshop for this purpose. This is shown within my prelim. Within my prelim, and the editing skills are all there. However, my prelim is not at the professional level I would need for my main practical task. I made a lot of mistakes during my prelim, and I would need to solve through practice and experimentation for my main task. In terms of my photography on my prelim, it was overall basic. Not a lot of thought in terms of mise-en-scène and lighting was used. Taking this on board for my main task, I made my images a lot more thought out and professional. On my music magazine cover, contents page and double page spread, my images look professional. I have thought thoroughly about my model and how she would look and be dressed in order to fit my audience. My skill on Photoshop in my prelim was very basic. I used basic features making it not as advanced, and it does not look as professional. I learnt from this fact and made sure that I experimented better with different techniques and styles to make my Photoshop skills more advanced and professional. The fact that the final products for my main task look a lot more advanced and professional shows that extra experimentation paid off, and I will bear that in mind when I carry on my media studies. On the cover and contents page that I made for my prelim, I did not experiment or look thoroughly at other layouts to make sure it fit. This taught me that when producing my main product, I needed to make sure my layout was more professional. And because I developed the main product has improved a lot, it looks more professional and slick. The colour palette that I used for my prelim was the same as my main task, red, white and black. However, my main task looks much more professional as my colour palette is more strategic and is used to make aspects stand out. The masthead on my prelim was basic, average, and there's no variation or creativity. My typography choices were also basic and did not link to the rest of the cover. To improve on my main, I learned from this and spent more time creating my own mastheads from scratch using creative features in Photoshop such as brushes and a variation of font. The teasers I used on my prelim did not stand out enough to my audience, instead were boring. However, in my main task, using my research, they are much better thought out and more fitting to my audience. Overall, if you look at my prelim and then my main task, you can see that I have improved my media skills and I am much more developed at using Photoshop, taking photographs, and using other editing platforms. Once I had done my primary and secondary research, it showed me that the main target audience for an indie genre would be people in social grades C1 to E, aged between 16 and 25, of mostly white, British, ethnic origin, but can also be received by any ethnic origin, of heterosexual orientation, from primarily British or American nationality, and the gender of my target audience would be primary female, but could also include male. Throughout my research, I saw that there was also a secondary target audience. This would be 25 to 35-year-old males and females in social class C1 to A. Through my research, it showed me that it was extremely important for my Lexis throughout all of my practical work to fit my target audience accurately. In order to understand how to make a professional cover, contents page, and cover, I first needed to look at existing covers to see what elements they include. Creating the new is rearranging the old, as said by the famous media theorist Bentley in 1997. This means that I will need to research existing conventions of the genre in order to make it recognisable to my target audience, but still unique design features that make it my own. In order for my Lexis to be correct, I used SurveyMonkey throughout my research to not only look at existing style in other covers, contents pages, and features, but to see what they would like to read on my own. To begin work on my product, I started with my cover. Before starting, I looked at mastheads from the following magazines: Enemy, Q, and Kerrang. I noticed that one of the most common conventions in terms of Lexis in the covers I looked at was that abbreviated words were used. For example, enemy. All of the mastheads either fill the top section of the left-hand third of the page and use white to contrast with dark colours in the background in order to draw the audience in. My mastheads took inspiration from these by making my Lexis on my masthead abbreviated, reading AIM. Therefore, the three abbreviated letters would stand for Alternative Indie Music. The Lexis represented my target audience because the words relate to the audience's style, suggesting that the music is unique and individual, just like them. I suggesting the following mastheads: IM, Indie Music, AM, Alternative Music, and Alternative Indie Music, AIM, to my audience through SurveyMonkey. When looking at my results, the most popular was AIM. Therefore, I chose this for my masthead, as I know that my target audience would like it. Also, based on my primary and secondary research I have already conducted, I used a bold, stylistic, and square typography in white on a dark background, using a reverse effect. This allowed my masthead to stand out and be visible to the eye. I think my masthead will be appealing to my target audience as it is in a font that is easily read, stands out on the background, and is simple but bold and appealing and very eye-catching. Overall, my masthead fits required conventions as it is abbreviated, bold and square, but goes against some of them in ways and adds my own creative twist, because the majority of the mastheads I saw in the style model use bright colours such as red. However, I have stopped using just white. In terms of the layout of my cover, I also looked at Enemy, Kerrang and Q. I noticed that common conventions I saw were that all of the covers had text on them, and each section of text surrounded the main image, drawing the audience's eye to the centre. I followed this convention on my own cover for a number of reasons. Firstly, I like how the eye is drawn in, therefore the main task has been looked at. The main image has been looked at by the audience, who will have some idea whether they will enjoy the magazine and want to buy it. And secondly, during my primary research through SurveyMonkey, I asked what my audience would like to see on the front cover. and a good quality, interesting main image was one of the things that my audience would most like to see. Therefore, if the eye is automatically drawn to that, the audience will be attracted to it. A convention that was common for all of the covers also was the main headline is always bigger than the other headlines. This draws the audience eye to the main story. Other common conventions I saw on the layout of the covers was that the masthead was at the top left-hand corner, and a lot of writing surrounded the outside. For the colour palette, I looked at the colours of my 3 main style models used, and what I mostly commonly found was that they used a 3-colour palette. This means that there were 3 main colours on the cover. These colours also most likely to be continued throughout the contents page. A very common colour that I found when looking at my style models was red. The colour red is excellent for the indie genre due to appealing both genders. Red appeals to males because it indicates danger and excitement, but it can also appeal to women as red is also a common colour to represent love and desire. This links to Laura Mulvey's theory that women are seen as sexual objects of desire and are easily attracted by desire. I chose to follow this convention through my contents page, and on my cover, I found that it was necessary due to a small amount of text, instead sticking only to white. My main image on my cover is a close-up shot because when I looked at enemy, Q, and Kerrang covers, I noticed that it was not only a common convention but a very effective one alongside mid-shots. I avoided mid-shots because I think that a good quality close-up image on the cover is good at drawing the eye for the audience. I need the best style of shot that would allow me to get the quality of the image. That is what my target audience said they were most likely to see on the cover. I think that I chose my style vehicle well to fit my genre and relate to my audience because she isn't overly covered in bright and excessive makeup, only having simple eyeliner and lipstick, and is wearing a unique and alternative range of clothes and accessories, such as earrings, lots of bracelets, and oversized clothing. Miss and Sem follows the stereotypes to some extent in Laura Mulvey's theory because my main style vehicle is a woman. However, she is not seen to be over-sexualized within the image and made to be seen as a desirable object. It could be said that I have challenged the conventions because the image is not overly edited. Instead, it is kept simple and only a few contrast and exposure changes. The end image looks effective on view. The choices, typography, and language on my cover needed to be very accurate to represent my target audience. Through looking at enemy, Q, and Kerrang covers, I saw that the most common typography styles, a simple and square letters, was based on appropriate language to the individual style, community, and ambition of the audience. I took this on board when making my cover and used a simple clear font. I also followed the conventions by using a variation of font, all simple and square. Even though I use red as a colour on my cover, it does not look edgy, like it is sometimes taken, but instead, as Hebridge said, it shows youth as fun, due to its combination of slick fonts. A common thing that I noticed on all covers was that they all included a barcode and price tag. I noticed that both of these aspects were kept small, not to distract from other aspects on the cover. For my cover, when placing the price, I made sure that it was small and concealed in the top left-hand corner. This is common in magazines, as the audience need to be attracted by the cover alone, not possibly put off by my price. In terms of my whole cover, I think that the most professional aspect that worked best was my masthead. Due to my target audience rating it as an important aspect in my primary research, I made this aspect throughout my research and experimentation the most thought out process, experimenting with many different styles before I found the right one that would fit best. My final masthead was very effective and looked very professional on my cover. One section of my cover that I would improve, however, would be my main headline typography. Although it matches the masthead typography and links well with the other choices of typography on the cover, however, I think it looks slightly out of place on the cover and could blend in much better. I think that the size of the typography could be changed as it looks too long, making the words look odd. I began my research for my contents page by finding style models from the same magazines that I used for my cover. I found that the style of Enemy, Q, and Kerrang was very fitting, creative and effective in the way they choose their layout. I observed that they all had the word content in a large font in bold and simple typography style. They all had 3 to 4 images on them. One of these would be the main image, therefore a lot larger. They all showed the page numbers in small Arial font in black and listed the stories that are written in a similar font. Usually they would transfer the masthead from the cover over to the contents page and also follow the same colour palette. Another convention I found was that was only used by Kerrang was a section where the editor wrote about what will be in the issue. This is not common but very effective. I used this style for my contents page by sticking to the 3-colour palette, using headlines that included bands that are common to the indie genre and fit my target audience, including good quality images and bold, simplistic typography. I also use the slightly less common convention of a message box from my editor. I use this as I think it represents my target audience by creating a sense of community for the audience, suggesting that the indie music genre accepts them for who they are. I went against this convention through making my masthead that I followed over from my cover to my contents page much bigger than it normally would be. I did this because my masthead is very similar to the font that I have used on the contents page, therefore fits well. I think that my contents page links with Stanley Hall's theory that hues are slightly dark, as I have used a black and white image of a young band member staring directly into the camera. However, in some ways, I break this convention as the rest of the images are bright and calm, therefore this indicates that the audience is diverse and broad. The letters and typography on my contents page look professional because each section of text matches and fits in together with no gapping, but I would change the section titles as it does not look as good because the typography is not as effective, instead looks slightly difficult to read. When starting my research for my double page spread, I looked at an example of the double page spread from each of the 3 style models. In reading double page spread articles on my style models, I found that there are many different types of articles, such as history, interview, review, or biography. I chose to do an interview in a style for my article on my double page spread. I chose this as when I was looking at my style models, it was a very common style for the genre. My article is about my new artist album and her recent rise to success within the indie genre. I observed that my main feature was a large, bold title, often the band member or artist name, followed by a quote from the article itself. 1 or 2 large, good quality images of the band or artist, and columned but small articles allowing the images to be the main feature. I follow these conventions on my double page spread by making my title Rose Inks, as the name of my band in bold, large font. I broke this convention, however, by instead of having a quote directly underneath, I used 2 quotes in the middle of the text, and the other across the image. I used 2 images, one large, following the idea that the images are the main aspect that will draw the eye. However, I used a small image at the top of the article, which is not an aspect seen within other magazine double page spreads from the genre, but works well. In order to add my own creative style to the magazine article, I added a side column to my article that included information on other bands in the charts, and now they have gone down in the charts due to the entrance of the new indie artist. This makes the article more interesting and creative. In terms of lexis through the article, it represents my target audience very well as it uses words such as unique and individual. This reinforces the alternative and indie nature of my target audience. I made my article quite informal and sometimes directly address the audience. This means that the audience will feel as if they are part of the magazine and are key to it. This gives them a feel of community and a place where they are accepted. Overall, I think that my double page spread looks very professional, as the images are good quality and the typography link together excellently. However, some aspects do need improving, as there is a small part at the bottom of the double page spread that is just white. I think this will be more effective if I use a quote or an image to replace it. In terms of my magazine, the best company to publish it would be IPC. Even though this company already own Enemy, which looks at music from the indie genre but also focuses on the rock genre, therefore my magazine is focused around the indie genre. Therefore it will differ from the style of Enemy. I also think that the indie as a genre is a generally small one, and will be good for both me and the company to expand the readership, therefore making more money.